Hello, everyone. I see that we have some attendees rolling in already. So we're going to give it a minute or so to let people join the webinar, and then we will get started with our guests today. We have Ryan and Alex from 910 Marketing. All right, so it looks like participants have stabled a bit here, so we'll just get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Shay Bachelet. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications at Business Link. We are a nonprofit in Alberta. We serve small business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs from across the province as they start, run, and grow their small business. Thank you for joining our webinar today. We're going to start with a land acknowledgement. We do have a very an Indigenous Business Services department that we are very proud of. And we want to acknowledge that in the province of Alberta, we are situated on the traditional territories of Treaty 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, ancestral homeland of diverse First Nation groups, Métis, and Indigenous people whose ancestors have walked to this land since time immemorial, and whose histories, language, and cultures continue to influence our vibrant community. We pay respect to the Indigenous people of this land, past, present, and future, while recognizing their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land on which we reside. So again, thank you for joining us today. We have Ryan Blaze, Business Development Officer with 910 Marketing, and Alex from 910 as well, who's one of their designers, who will also be doing some demos for you in Canva. We're going to be talking all about Canva Brand Kit, so how you can use Canva, which is an incredible tool for small businesses, to help build your brand up. If you have any questions during the webinar, please click the Q&A box in the bottom of your screen, and you can type a message into that box. Ryan and Alex will be answering questions throughout the presentation, and we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. There is also a chat where you can engage with all of the other participants. So if you have any comments or questions, feel free to engage in there. But if you have any questions that you want Alex and Ryan to answer, please do put them in that Q&A box, because then they know they're there, they're monitoring that, and they can answer those for you. The information provided in this session is for general knowledge and should not be taken as professional advice. And it is my pleasure to welcome our presenters today. Welcome, Ryan and Alex. This is our third webinar with 910. So we did one on Google My Business, on websites and SEO, both of which you can find on the recorded webinars page in our resources section on our website. We do have one more as well later this month. We'll talk about that at the end. So with that, I will pass it over to Ryan and Alex, and I'll just sort of be in the background here and pop on again at the end.
Perfect. Thank you, Shay, for the warm welcome. And yeah, we love doing these webinars. They're part of a series, 4 with Business Link that we've been doing over the summer. But we've been doing some with ATB, with the City of Grand Prairie. We're also in deep partnership with Alberta Chambers of Commerce and, from that, community chambers throughout the province. And our goal really with these is to help small businesses and startups become digitally enabled. And, Alberta has a really robust entrepreneur ecosystem, and we're sort of operating within that space, really helping these businesses to become more self-sufficient when it comes to all of the things that fall under the umbrella of digital marketing. So in today's session, Alex and I will present on brands and Canva. And probably what most people are interested in is Canva. Canva is one of the new tools out there that allows non-designers like me. I'm not a technically trained designer, but Alex is. I'm able to do beautiful designs in a drag and drop interface in Canva. But I'm able to do that because there's a certain number of foundational elements that are in place first. And those are the elements that come across from brand. And so we're going to cover a little bit about that and sort of help you understand what are the elements that it would be good to have in place for your business. And then especially if you have them in place, you'll be able to take them further and really build some capabilities for you to be able to do your own branded, beautiful design. So let's jump into it. All right, so all of this content through these webinar series and the ones that we've been doing throughout the province with other partners, they all stem from our digital marketing bootcamp. This is a 12-week program for startups and small businesses throughout Alberta, which is aiming to provide you the tools, the confidence to be able to do your own digital marketing in-house, to build that efficiency, that capability, so you don't have to be paying agencies to be doing your digital marketing work for you. That's not cost effective, nor is it efficient in terms of just getting your message out. So throughout, you can definitely learn more about our program at 910.ca/training, and let's jump onto it. So what is a brand? You know, if you ask 15 people what a brand is, you will get 20 different answers, this is sure. And most people would probably, when they think about a brand, they would identify some of the elements that fit within this thing called a brand umbrella. And what I'm hoping to do right now is to provide you an overview of what I call brand with a capital B. Brand is so much more than just a logo, as you'll see. So let's jump in here. And I got my question panels over my way here. Let me just move those away. So a brand is definitely much more and beyond your logo. So when we're talking to small businesses, quite often I'll ask if they have an established brand. Most of the time, the answer is yes. And most of the time that is an incorrect answer. It's not as though they're lying. It's just rather there's not a great understanding of what it means to have a brand. So most companies will have a logo, but a logo is sort of one small element of the brand. Now, one of the things I like to introduce, and we do this throughout 910, was we use a lot of metaphors, a lot of analogies to simplify concepts. And so when you're thinking of a brand, I like to dissect them into three parts that we talked about consistently. And so first of all, the logo is most synonymous with the face. If you meet someone, a person, now that you've met Alex and I throughout this webinar, if someone mentions my name, you'll probably recall my face. And just as it is with a company, the logo is the face of the company. It's the thing that shows up first. It's the thing that gets recalled. When you're thinking of McDonald's, you'll probably think of the golden arches. If you're thinking about Nike, you might think of the swoosh. So the logo. Next is that your face shows up in the world as a person, and you typically are dressed and you have a certain style about you, and people can recognize you potentially across the room by the way that you dress and accessorize. And so it is with a company that has a logo. They have a face. They show up in the world on vehicle wraps and on billboards and on sales collateral, and they have a certain look and feel about them. That look and feel is called visual identity. Then the next thing we talk about brand insights. And that's sort of shown here by the heart. And it's almost the most important thing. So whether you like my face or not, my logo, and whether or not I'm consistent or I'm impressive in the way that I dress, you're ultimately going to judge me in the mid and long term by my personality, by my core characteristics, by the way your interactions with me are. And so when we think about a company in terms of their brand insights, it's more about the personality and those aspects. So I'm going to expand on this. This next slide is a little bit meant to overwhelm, but mostly to educate. So when we talk about brand strategy, this is a slide that really encompasses sort of all of the elements of a brand. And you'll see that on the left-hand side, we have brand strategy. The internal brand would be purpose, vision, mission, values. These are things that you would say are written on paper. They're indoctrinated. This is the information that comes from the owners, the founders, the management team, and it really sets a clear direction on who we are, what we're about. And then when we talk about positioning is in the market, like audience persona, who is our audience and what can we say and know about them so that we can identify and target them properly. And who are our competitors and how are we different from them? And what are our differentiations in the market? Sometimes you've heard this term, this unfair advantage. What is it that you do that is different or unique or better? And so this is part of your brand. It's not the visuals yet. None of this is done in Photoshop. And typically people would not think about these as their brand elements. And you could say that maybe this is stuff that feels like it's spilling over into your business model. And I'd say that's accurate. A business model should have elements of your strategic brand. But then when we look to the right-hand side, we have the brand expression. And in here, even still, not all of this is visual yet. So we have character where we start to introduce personality or what we call brand archetypes. This is as though you're giving your company, your business, a personality. You're going through an intentional process to identify and to build out a character type for your business, which will inform how you show up in the marketplace, how you promote, how you sell, how you communicate, etc. And then there's obviously, or not obviously rather, then it builds on to what we call brand voice. And this is, again, sort of the voice of the company, core messages, tone of voice, the nature in which you're telling your story. And I'm going to sort of go over now to the right-hand section, visual expression. And I'm highlighting this here because this is what most people will probably be thinking of when they're thinking of a brand. And at this next slide, I'm going to zoom in here and show that there's more components that sort of fall out of this. So under visual expression, there's visual identity. And today, what we're going to be talking mostly about is visual identity. And I just kind of wanted to put a flag here that within visual identity, logo is yet but one component, but building off of the logo under the visual identity is your typography, your colors, your textures, your patterns, your icons. And if your logo is the face and your visual identity is your style, within the visual identity, we're building the style that's going to go along with the logo. But I really want to orient you that for many companies, they do this out of order. It's difficult to design a logo and a visual identity without knowing, first of all, the strategic direction of the brand and who your target audience is and what your core purpose and mission and vision and values are. So this is quite often organizations will do this a little bit out of order. So I'll head on to the next section here, but it's very common that when businesses are approaching us for a digital marketing bootcamp, I'll ask the question, do you have an established brand? Do you have a brand? Do you have a logo? And quite often, smaller businesses or startups will indicate that they have a brand, but what they actually only have is a logo. And what will become clear, at least within Canva here, is that with a logo, there's not too much you can do within Canva unless you're a trained designer, because you won't have assets. And it's almost as though a chef needs ingredients to work with. Well, those ingredients are these elements, typography, color palette, image style, iconography, etc. So what I'm going to do is give you an overview of 910's visual identity standards, which starts with its logo and then builds into visual identity. And it sort of sits atop of a separate document, a business plan, which accounts for sort of all of that, the strategic brand elements. And then from here, we'll toss it over to Alex, and then Alex will show how, once this is in place, you can go into Canva and very easily do branded design. So this is 910's visual identity guide. It starts with our logo. Often a logo will have multiple orientations. The long and skinny version. There's a version that's stacked. Sometimes there's a symbol or an icon. Think of the Nike swoosh. That's a version of their logo. So it's identifying if there's multiple versions or color types or sort of variations of the logo with the tagline, without the tagline. It's ensuring that you have all of those so you have the flexibility to work with them across different applications and use cases. Then we introduce there's always primary and secondary and accent colors. And once you have those identified, there's these technical color codes, which vendors will use, and printers will use something different than web developers or people that are working with the brand in a digital format. They would use RGB, and printers use CMYK. You don't even need to remember that. These are just more, you can think of them as technical codes for your vendors. And then if you're in Canva, well, these colors are prearranged and organized for you to drag and drop. Then from there, we introduce typography, and I'm just showing elements, just snippets from our brand guide right now. So we have 4 or 5 different fonts that we identify, where we use them, how we use them. Some of our divisions, for example, training program has a dedicated font that we only use within that. And then little things like style guides when we're communicating on a website or on a poster or on a billboard. How do we bring attention, and how do we bring focus to our calls to action? And so there's just different examples of how to do that. And then what we do is we introduce background elements and patterns and all of these assets that are made available for anyone who's going to be designing for the brand. And so these typically will serve as the background for the poster or the social media graphic. And these graphic elements will also quite often include pre-approved textures or backgrounds or various elements. And I mentioned earlier that we also do a lot of illustrations and analogies. Earlier on, I presented sort of the simplification of, you can think of a brand as the logo is the face, the visual identity is your style, and the insights is your sort of personality or heart. And we had illustrated that as an analogy. Well, we have very specific guidelines on what these illustrations look like, and those are contemplated in our brand guide. This one here is an analogy from a chef. I sort of used that example before. A chef can't really do much without the ingredients. And so it is in Canva, it's difficult to do much unless you have the graphic assets. So Quite often when a company is working with an agency to build out their visual identity, again, if you think of those as just the graphics, the assets, quite often there's icons. And so we have a rich library of icons that are made available, and we can use those as we're building out our various graphics. And you'll see probably Alex is leveraging some of these in the drag and drop function ease today. A brand guide will also outline the type of imagery to use, whether that's stock or professional, and is it focusing on the products or the service or the equipment or the people or the office? And are there any notes in terms of treatments or filters? Think of all of the things you can do with apps now that allow you to add filters. And so one of the things that we do here to add visual interest to some of our photos, and sometimes to take a photo that's not that great quality and to mask it to make it more usable, we have these rules on how we can use colors with translucency as layovers. And then typically in the visual identity process, the designer will actually take the step of designing out some of that collateral. This is the business card, the letterhead, the envelope, presentation folders, maybe email signature. And so what you have at the end of this is you have a logo, which most companies have, but then you have a very, very clear visual framework. And you would say that now as you're working with any professional vendor, a web designer, someone who's going to do a vehicle wrap, someone who's doing professional printing, they'll say, can I have a copy of your logo and your visual identity? And you'll say yes. And then they will have the biggest smile on their face because you have all of the professional assets that they'll be able to use. And then they would say, rightfully, they're actually not designing for you something original, rather they're complying to brand standards that have already been designed, have already been contemplated. So that has been the normal sort of setup within industry for many, many years. What Canva has introduced is this ability to make all of this accessible to non-designers, because these standard industry guides are kind of not useful to you if you don't have Photoshop, if you don't have Illustrator, if you're not a trained designer. But one of the steps that we do is once we've gone through the work of building out these visual identities, you can think of it as we deconstruct them, pull them apart, and we'll upload them into Canva. Once they're in Canva, with a little bit of instruction and a little bit of a practice, you can go to drag and drop design that is compliant to your visual identity standards. And it's as though you become a professional designer, and you're not a professional designer. You're probably like me. You're just sort of you're working with great ingredients. So with that, and here just as an example, today's presentation is built on a template that was built and made available in Canva. And Alex and I were designing it together. She is a designer, so her stuff looks better than mine, but my stuff looks pretty darn good because I'm using all of these drag and drop elements. So over to you, Alex. Do you want to let me stop sharing the screen so you can share on your end as well.
Sure, I'll just jump right into Canva there. Let me just share my screen.
And perfect. And while Alex is presenting, I will, now that I'm not presenting, I'll be monitoring the questions in the Q&A. So feel free to drop them in there, and we'll either just pause and answer them on the fly, or we will save those for the end as well. Over to you, Alex.
Perfect. And I do just want to add to what Ryan has said already. I already mentioned this, but the best way to make Canva work really well for you is to have those graphic assets and the patterns and the photos from your brand built out already and then integrated into Canva. I'll show you what the brand kit is in Canva, and it just sort of lays all that stuff out really easily for everybody. But having those graphics pre-made is, like with icons in the backgrounds, is really what helps make Canva work for you. So this is what Canva looks like. This is just the homepage inside of our account. You can see it kind of showcases sort of some things it thinks you might want to make. And then down here, we've got a few of our recent designs. You can see the business link presentation right there because we built it in Canva, like Ryan mentioned. And something to note just while we're on this page is it does give you the option to make logos in Canva. That's one thing that I would actually suggest not doing in Canva. The reason is because you're not working with a professional designer in that sense, is you're not going to be able to customize it as much as you would like, and you probably won't be able to get the proper print files for it. So I would definitely stick to designing like social media graphics, posters, presentations, that kind of thing in Canva. But the basics like the logo and sort of the basic visual identity, you're going to want to go to a professional designer or yourself for that kind of thing. All right, so we've got Canva over here, and then you can see there's a menu on the side and a menu up top for us to kind of navigate through Canva. Right here is called your brand kit. If I'm being completely technical here, this should probably be called your visual identity kit, but Canva just chose brand as the easier kind of word. This is where you store your logos, your colors, and your fonts, sort of the base 3 of your visual identity. You can see we've got all of our different logo variations there. This color palette sitting there that you mentioned, or that you saw in Ryan's slide with the colors. And then over here, we've got our brand fonts. So these all sit here, and they just allow you to easily access them while you're designing other graphics throughout Canva, and it keeps everything consistent. Make sure you use the same logo, the same colors every time, and then you don't have to go searching for them each time you want to make a new graphic. So this is the brand kit. And all you have to do to kind of create this is have all of the files and just upload them right into Canva. Have your font files. You might need to license them depending on what font it is, and then have the hex codes, they're called, for your colors, and that's how you add them right into there. And then I'm just going to go into, so in here we have set up for our own use templates. So these were built by me and the other designer here at 910 for everybody else in the company to use. So Ryan will go in here and he'll make a copy of one of these templates, add in the new content, and then he's got a social media post. So these are really quite helpful so that the designers don't have to do all of the work all the time. And it makes it really quick to just make a quick blog post template graphic for Instagram, or maybe a tutorial Instagram post. So they're all just set up there right away. You can either edit the original template to make changes to the base, or you can just make a copy of it and then edit right away. So I'm actually going to do that. Let's pick this one. So when I click on this, it's going to open up and show me the actual template here. What I don't want to do is hit edit original, because I don't want to change the template look, but I do want to use this template. So when I click use this template, you can see it opens up a copy of this template. So it's going to put copy of up here in the title. A best practice would be to rename this as like whatever post it's going to be or the date it's going to go out on. But I'm going to leave that for now because I'll probably delete it after. So this is the template here. You can see I can click into the content. I can start typing. I can change this content. I can change the color of things if I need. I can go into the side here and switch out. Maybe I want this photo as my headshot instead. Down here, we also have all of our icons listed. So I can change out that icon depending on what the blog post is about. And again, like you see, it's just a drag and drop over there. And then for this, I would maybe go on our website and pick the blog post that I was wanting to be posting about and take a little bit of content from that and copy it right into here. Let me just actually pull that up. Take a second to load, but I will show you what I mean. This is off screen right now, but basically just pulling up a little bit of our blog. So this is one of our quick play blogs. I would just copy that, and now you can see it kind of added more text than I need there. So I can either delete text, or I could just highlight that and just shrink it down a little bit till it gets to about where the template showed originally. That's kind of the thing that Canva really is helpful with, is you have this template and it's going to change depending on what kind of content you put in, but you can easily just change the size of things, change the shape of things to fit the new content and whatever you need to make this post. All right, so once I am happy with whatever this looks like, I can hit download up here. And it's going to give me the option to save it as an image, a PDF, an SVG. These are vector files. You're probably not going to need that. The ones you'll need the most would be PNG or JPEG. And because this is for social media, I would save it as a JPEG. You can sort of up the size if you need to, add a transparent background, and then I'd hit download. And that's just going to download right to my computer. I can send it to my phone and then post from there. So it makes it really easy from that way. Now that is editing with a template, but if I wanted to, say, make a brand new Instagram post, I could just, from here, from my homepage, wherever, just hit this create a design button up in the top corner. And that's going to give me all of these options for different types of media, basically. So I'm going to do an Instagram post again. You can see it's showing me the size right there. If you wanted to make an Instagram story, it's got this size. We can search for Facebook ads, Facebook cover photos. They've got all these sizes loaded in right there. And that's really helpful to not have to search for that size each time.
Alex, I'm just going to jump in here and some relevant questions from Teresa. How did you get a list of icons in the folder? So maybe talk about how, in that case, those icons were actually designed first in the visual identity standard. It was then that they were uploaded into Canva once. They kind of need to be put in there in the folder. And maybe just talk about sort of the process of loading assets into Canva so that they're there to be used, whether it's these icons or photos for that matter.
Yeah, so when we were I would say redoing our visual identity, we, Ryan in particular, really wanted to have a sort of robust icon library. So we went through our services and sort of our social media, what we've been posting about, and kind of got ideas from there as to what we would need icons for. Also, even just looking online for other companies, what they're using icons for, you can kind of get some ideas for what you might need. And then we as designers, me and the other designer, we did build these icons in a program called Illustrator. So they were built in graphic design software. And then we exported images of them and then just uploaded them into Canva. So they're for use for anybody, but we did have to build them in design software. As you can see, it's just a PNG. So it's an image file. Anybody can drag and drop it once it's in Canva, but it was just built outside of Canva. That makes sense. Any other questions there, Ryan?
Yeah, and there's a question from Anne, just because you had mentioned this earlier. So Canva has built into it the ability for you to design a logo. There's lots of places online where you can design a logo as well. Generally, we find that those, when you're actually building the assets, when you're actually designing the logo and designing the icon, I would call these foundational items. It makes a lot of sense to make sure that you're getting this right. And so this is where we would advocate working with a designer to design your logo, to design your visual identity. What we're really saying is once that's in place and hopefully it's professionally designed, or at least designed by an amateur that knows what they're doing, there's room for that as well too. It's the using it afterwards in Canva is really easy, but you want to make sure that there's some core fundamental best practices, let's call it, from a design perspective. So Anne, we're one agency in Alberta that we design logos and visual identities. There's no shortage across the province. There is even options online. There's plenty of places where you can go and get a cheap logo online. 99 Designs is an example. The challenge with those is ensuring that it's one, original design, that you're not going to be in a trademark infringement position. Two, that you get all of your assets at the end. You're not just getting JPEGs, but you're getting all of the versions of the source files and the black and white logo and the grayscale logo and the long and skinny logo and the version of the logo with just the symbol, so that you have all of those assets to put them into Canva. And if you were doing one of those online designs, did they just design your face, or did they design the visual identity and the colors and the fonts and the textures and the patterns and the icons? And typically you're going to find that most of those cheap online sort of services don't provide all of those. And if you are able to find one and you're getting that full package at a lower rate, then more power to you. I just say that that's a really important foundational piece. Back to you, Alex.
Yeah, and I'm just noticing another question from Anne is asking if these are the free version or the paid version, Canva Pro. Some of this functionality is available on Canva, the free version, and some is more on the Pro version. You can still design graphics and upload all of this stuff into the free version, but I believe the organization, the brand kit stuff is probably the Pro. And the ability to add more team members and do a little bit more animation in certain sense. And there's also a really cool feature called background remover in Canva Pro that I believe isn't in the free version. I'm not 100% sure on all of the different functionalities, but there definitely is a bonus to having that Canva Pro account if you can sort of have it. Perfect. I am going to now just build a design from scratch to show everyone what that looks like. So actually, you can also just see in here, we've organized this folder ourselves, and this just kind of shows our various assets that we have from our visual identity. So we've got textures here, patterns, all of these icons. We've even organized our photos into here. It's really good to organize those base structure folders as well as you can, because it just makes it that much quicker to access them when you're editing a design. So I will show how to do that. If I just go create a design, I'm going to do an Instagram post. It's just going to pop up and show a blank page. And from here, I'm going to, let's say, add the background, one of our backgrounds from it. So on the side here, you can see all of these different folders. You just find it. We've got quite a few here. We've got patterns. Okay. So in our patterns, if I just want to drag this red color over, it's going to show up right there. And you can see all I did was drag and just hover and then drop it. And that's going to fill the background. If I clicked it, it would show up as the full image on the design, but I want it to be the background. So I'm adding it this way. Then from here, actually, let's use this one instead. I can add one of our logos. So I'm going to click on the logo folder here. This is something that comes from the brand kit. So it allows it to just be right there instead of having to make a logos folder and scrolling through and finding it. I'm going to add our red logo, just kind of squish it down to resize it. Put it up here. And then I'm going to add some text. So if I scroll back up, you can click the text on the side, and as you can see here, it's got our heading font, our subheading font, and our body text right there. So if I just click that, it's going to give me the styled text already put in there. You can see it's our brand font. It's at a certain size. You can change this in the brand kit. I'm going to change it here while I'm designing this, but that is basically how easy it is to just click those things and put them right into the template, or sorry, the design. Let's get some sort of cheesy quote here. Just gonna pull this over. We want this to be in our design. And as you can see, I'm just dragging, and it's going to just resize that text right there. I'm going to change the line spacing just a little bit. Highlight that, fix the text, put a period in there, and then maybe just push this up a little bit square. And just clicking and dragging, put the 910 logo at the bottom. Let's say I'm happy with this, and that's the post I'm going to make today. So we've got a quote, we've got our 910 logo, and we've got this background in there. Maybe I don't like the way this background looks, and I want a photo instead, so I can just click on photos here. This is something that is a Canva Pro feature. When you have Canva Pro, it gives you access to a bunch of different stock photos that you can just use whenever you need. So that's something that comes with Canva Pro as well. If I wanted to actually use one of our own photos though, I go in here and click this one. Okay, so I like this picture. I'm gonna drag it over. Now it's kind of hard to see the text a little bit, but what I'm gonna do is click on that background image and go edit image. And I'm just gonna turn the brightness down so that it's darker, and then take this text and change it to white so you can see it a little better. That's how quick you can just make a design right here. And then as you can see, our brand kit is sitting right here in the color palette.
Alex.
One size, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions about the difference between Canva Free and Canva Pro. So if you go to canva.com/pricing, or just Google, Canva options, you'll see that there's the free version, which is a great place to start. Definitely don't feel the need to go pro right away, but the pro is $150 a year. It's well worth it. If you're a company and you're thinking, I want to do branded design and I really want to make use of your logo and your visual identity, it's just such a reasonable price. We don't get any kickback. We're not an affiliate in that way. So this really is just sort of a recommendation that this is a good business cost to rationalize, because it unlocks a lot of powerful features, including more flexibility with your brand kit and the number of fonts you can upload. But even things like, Alex, I was hoping you could grab maybe one of the pictures of our team member and showcase, for example, the background remove. There are a few killer features that just in one click turn you into almost a professional designer. And the background remover is one of those more popular examples, and it's only available in the Canva Pro.
I just clicked that there. It's under edit image. It's going to take a second to remove it, but as you can see, it just removed that background completely from me. You
So
can actually restore a little bit of it or erase things that are maybe there, but it actually is a very good and quick tool. And honestly, even us as designers will come in here instead of Photoshop sometimes because it's that much quicker to just click a button and it goes
Yeah,
away.
and where this becomes really powerful is you might have a picture of this case, a person, or it could be a piece of equipment or one of your products, or one of a stock photo that you got available from within the built-in stock library, also available in the Pro version. And you can start to sort of extract out the noisy background information that you don't really want because you want to just use that portion of, in this case, just picture of me. But then I want to overlay that on top of one of the backgrounds that was designed in our visual identity standard. And so, Alex, you can imagine, just even really quickly, let's lay that over top one of our backdrops, maybe the light colored blown out light one, and then throw on an icon of a website. And then, you could really easily add a bit of text there that says website, webinar, join us next Thursday, something like that. And this drag and drop ease with all of the elements that are ready to go really just becomes so easy to work with once the stuff's in there. And so going back to one of the questions that was asked before, Canva's a really powerful tool, but only really powerful once you have your assets loaded in there. So in here, what we also have is Alex really quickly went and jumped into a folder that had a bunch of pictures of our team, of the people, but we also have photos of the office, and we have some, just some high quality photos of, just sort of environmental stuff, cool pictures of coffee mugs and keyboards and, notebooks for design and all these types of things. And they become the elements that we can really easily drag and drop and use in that way as well.
Yeah, and as you can see here, it removes the background completely. So you can see the actual sort of icon background we've got here, and that just really quickly allows you to add in your own backgrounds and your own icons and that kind of thing.
So there's a good
cool
question. A good question here from who asked that question? Sorry, the questions are kind of coming up quick here, but someone asked about saving a template. So one of the things that once we design the visual identity and we deconstruct it and load it into Canva, what we quite often do on behalf of our clients, and this is an option, is we will actually pre-design a bunch of templates. So although Alex quickly put this together, you can imagine this being a template. So it's like, well, if this is a graphic that you'd like to use over and over, but you might want to change out the person, you might want to change out the icon from the library of icons that exist, this can be a template that you go back to. So Alex, can you talk about the work to create a template, working with a template? If you've actually created something like you want to use this again, how do you turn it into a template?
Yeah, so if I am happy with the way this looks, I would just always make sure to label it. That's going to be very important for finding it later, and just it makes it so much more organized in the back end. So I'm just going to label it new template. And then I'm going to click these three dots up here and just start typing in template, and it's going to give me the option to save it as a template. So it's going to want you to put it in a folder. I would probably put it in our, what's it called? Branded templates folder. I'll even just put that in here now. And I'm going to go add and then hit publish template. Now I have the option to keep editing it, or I can view the template. If I want to view it, it's going to take me right back to this folder that I put it in, and you can see it's right here. So now if I want to use it, I can either edit the original one to make changes, or I can click use this template, and it's going to bring that up, and I can change the picture, change the icon, and use it as well.
Perfect.
Super
going
simple.
through some of the questions here, Alex, again, Alana has some great questions. So could you list out the extensions, the file formats that you would expect to get if you're hiring a professional logo designer, visual identity? And these would be things like JPEG, PNG, PSD, EPS. Maybe if you can, Alex, describe kind of a vector or what it's a source file is. And then in Canva, I believe we upload the PNG files.
Yeah, so like Ryan said, the ones you're going to want to upload into Canva are PNG files, and those are image files that have transparency. So it's different from a JPEG because JPEGs don't have transparency. So they're always going to have that white background on them. But the PNGs allow for this. You can see it's just a, let's click on this and open it. Should I download it? Open for me. You can see that you can't really see the 910 because there's no background on it. So that's what a PNG is. So there's raster files and there's vector files. The raster files are going to be your images, like your JPEG, your PNG, and one more that I can't think of right now. But the other ones are going to be vector files.
SVG.
No, that's a vector file.
Okay.
Your vector files are the design files that are coming from the designer, and these are going to be good for use in print, or if you're sending anything to a vendor that needs to make something for you, they're going to want those vector files. That'll be SVG, EPS, AI, PDF is also sometimes a vector file. Sometimes you can save images into a PDF. You don't want to do that. But the main ones would be PNG, JPEG, AI, SVG, and EPS. And those are probably going to be your main 5 bases. And I would say those are a good set of logo files. Sometimes you'll get the PSD files or like the GIF file even. But those top five are the best ones to get.
Okay, so Alex, I'm just going to kind of pop around some questions here as well. There was a question, your brand font is automatically populated from having previously uploaded. So the question here is if you've gone through the process of when you're setting up your Canva brand kit, you've put in the logos, you've put in the colors, you've set the fonts. Later on, when you're in one of the design panels, are those fonts pre-populated? And how do you toggle between the main font or the secondary font? So if you can just talk a little bit about using fonts that have been pre-populated. Also, Canva has built into it a bunch of fonts, but if the font that your designer has chosen is not in Canva, this is another thing you can do with Canva Pro. You can upload fonts into Canva if they're not already in there. So that's another sort of reason for the Pro feature.
I'm just going to edit this one. So on the side here, you're going to see the button that says text. And these ones at the top of the page are our brand fonts. Those are coming directly from Brand Kit. These are other fonts that Canva has and allows for. You can search for a bunch of different fonts, but these top ones here are going to be the main brand font. So if I change this, let's just pick one from here. Let's say this was a different template and it came with this font. All I have to do is click up here. These are going to be the top 3 ones up here, and it's just going to change that right back to the font that I wanted. If I wanted it to be one of our other brand fonts, I could just click on that. It's going to show up. But those are, it's always going to show those right at the top here, and then right at the top in the actual just like text side here. It's something actually we can go into. This is a very cool feature of Canva Pro as well. It might be a Canva, just a Canva thing, but if I am, so Canva has all of these pre-made templates as well. They're not always the best, but quite a few of them actually work pretty well. So I would say not something to ignore if you're in Canva. So if I went to Instagram posts like I just did, and say I wanted to use, let's go with this template. I clicked on it and actually it gives you all these options here. I'm going to click this one instead because I like that one better. So I've clicked on this template. This is from Canva. I didn't touch this at all. Haven't made it. So I'm just going to go customize this template. I'm just going to bring that right into the editing window for me. And from here, I can actually, because I have that brand kit uploaded, I can go to something called styles. And it's going to give me my brand kit fonts and the palette here. So if I were to click these fonts, automatically going to change these fonts on here to have the brand kit fonts. If I change the color, it's just going to pick one of my brand colors and put it in there and use it as the sort of overlay that's in the background here.
And Alex, this is tied into a really good question by Yogachara Don Baba. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I'm new to Canva and about to set it up. I'm a yoga teacher and I see they have pre-configured brand kit templates for yoga templates. There's probably some for all types of businesses. And would it be good to select and then add my own brand kit colors, etc.? So yes, that's a good idea to start. Once you start using Canva, you'll see in social media, you'll recognize when a company is using Canva, partly because of the design style. Sometimes it's because they're using from the world of templates, and then they're just modifying them to their colors, to their fonts. It's a good place to start. What we typically recommend is to design your own templates so that you're differentiated, because it is a good idea. And we even do it sometimes. There's thousands and thousands of beautiful templates that provide inspiration and cool ideas and something for a quick post. But they're out there and tons of other companies are using them as well. And to a certain degree, they're not original to your business. But if you take them and you modify them and you introduce some of the elements from your visual identity, your textures, your patterns, your colors, then it's probably a fine thing to do. And what you'll find is that gives you a treasure trove of design that you can repurpose. It's like it almost relieves some of the design burden, but you want to be very careful that when you're doing that, if you're reaching out into the world of templates, you want to be somewhat consistent in how you use them. And so, for example, if you're doing, I'll just make this up, if you're doing like every Thursday, you do a yoga tip on breathing, don't make that look different every time. Have consistency with that. And if you have, a post on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, have those, try not to look completely different where you're sometimes using templates in this direction and sometimes templates in that direction. One of the most important things about branding, visual branding, is visual consistency. That's the thing that's going to anchor someone when they see it in the newsfeed going by quickly. They're like, oh yeah, that's the stuff from Don Bubba, because I recognize something visually consistent. That's the same thing as I walk into a party. You can't see my face, you can't see my logo, but because I dress consistently, you can spot me from across the room just by my visual style. So that's one of the important things I want to draw out.
I just want to make a comment to add to your message, or what you just said, Ryan, is all of these templates, yeah, like you can use them as needed. As you can see up here, this is showing that because we're a Canva Pro subscriber, we're getting the images for free, and we can use them wherever we need to. This is something that comes from, like I said, Canva Pro. I know with the images, the stock images, you get access to those if you're a Canva Pro account, and you can use them. If I wanted to use this for 910, like you can see, there's lots of different templates in here. So not all of them are going to be great for 910. Like, for example, if I wanted to use this and I went into these styles and even just added the color, sure, those are our colors, but these are, like you can see the fonts kind of broke it because it was script font and it's switching all the way to a sans serif font, which is this. We've never used these kind of swirls or swooshes in our brand before, so it would look very weird coming from us if we were to use this template. So not all of them are going to work. We could potentially make this work, as in maybe we delete these. Maybe we're just using the red background. I delete the heart too, and I'm using it like this. Maybe I want these all to be uppercase. Resize that a little bit. There, like that's a little bit more 910, but as you can see, I had to delete a bunch of stuff from the template. So they're perfect to use in certain areas, like maybe if you want inspiration, or if you see one that really kind of already sort of flows with your brand, it just doesn't have the right colors or anything. But not all of them are going to work all the time. So yeah, that's something to remember.
And by the way, I just learned that Yogeshwara is a yoga teacher in Sanskrit. Thank you for that. So there's some good questions here. I'm wondering, how can you utilize Canva for your personal brand as opposed to, say, for a company brand? The same general principles apply, other than for a personal brand, you're maybe less likely to be able to rationalize investing dollars and cents into doing it properly. So if you're talking about a personal brand, the moment where I would say is the moment that personal brand is meant to earn money and to target a certain sort of audience and has a specific offering, and then you want to implement some of the branding elements that we were talking about that a company would consider. But one of the things you can do in Canva is you can manage different brand kits. So you could have a brand kit with logos and colors and fonts for, say, 910. And it could be that on the side, Ryan Blay is also a consultant, and I do consultant on business strategy planning separate from 910. I could also have a secondary brand kit loaded, which is a Canva Pro supports that. But then the assumption is, well, if it supports that, I still have to have those assets, the logos, the colors, the fonts pre-created. You can, for your personal, you could say, well, I'm not going to hire a designer. I'm just going to pick my own colors, and I'm going to go somewhere and get a logo done for real cheap online. I'm okay with that. It's just that you really want to be careful that you're being consistent and that you're applying a lot of the same core principles that you would for a company. Now, real quickly, the other thing to consider about personal branding is sometimes you're in an industry where you're the realtor. Realtors is a good example. They're on Facebook as a personal, as a person, but they're also on Facebook, let's say, as a realtor for Remax or Sutton or something like that. And should they be different or the same on both of those? I'd say that's more of a choice, but once you make that choice, you just want to be consistent and you want to be professional. Or you might want to say, I don't want to be professional in my personal brand. But then you might want to lock that up in terms of privacy, and that's a whole other consideration.
I'm noticing, I just see a question from Teresa here. How do you download directly to your phone? So Canva also has an app for your phone where you can just design quickly right on your iPhone or any phone. One thing I would say is it does look a little bit different than the desktop version. So the way that the editing, let me just open this up so I can kind of talk about it. So having the side menu on here and the editing right in this part of the screen, when it's on your phone, obviously there's a smaller screen, so it's sort of structured a little bit differently. So that's something to just make note of. Here is going to look different when you're doing it on your phone, but when you download from Canva on the app, it will just download right to your photo library and you can upload it from there. So
yeah. I have a good question from Kristen here. Can I share the screen, Alex, if you want to unshare that for a moment?
Yep.
I'm just going to go back to the slide. So there was a question about what we cover in the boot camp, and it was in reference to this sort of this large chart here, which, you know, I recognize that this can sort of feel overwhelming, but really it's what you're saying is there's elements about your brand that can be written on paper, and it's more about thinking and making decisions and sort of being clear on who you are, what you're about, who you're selling to, what are your products and services. And it's just being very clear that you're, from a strategic perspective, you understand what your business is about and who you're selling to and all of that. These are things that we cover in the boot camp. So this would be something that typically we would say, we're not going to tell you who your target audience is, and we're not going to tell you what your purpose is, and we're not going to tell you what your vision is, but we would facilitate a discussion to help you pull those together. And then you would document those in any way you want. You don't even have to get fancy with that. And then those insights that you gather from there typically should be the things that would bubble up then and then would inform. So if you are going to hire someone to design a logo for you and to design your visual identity, these should all be informed by those prior elements. Because otherwise, what's going to happen if you don't have any of that, you hire a logo designer online or in person with us. If you don't have any guiding principles, yeah, you'll get a good looking logo, but does it have any meaning? Is it align with your target audience? And then when you start to design your color palettes and your visual icons and your assets, like if they're not being guided by any strategic principles, you're just shooting from the hip. And so it might look good, but is it in alignment with sort of your strategic brand? And so that's where there's quite often a bit of a misstep. So what we say is for our training boot camp, which is a 12-week program, there are some prerequisites to get in the program, and one of them is an established brand. Because one of the things we do in the boot camp is we teach you how to use or how to activate your brand. And one of the tools that we introduce to do that easily is Canva. But that all hinges on actually having an established brand. So we do let clients into the program that just have a logo. If they don't have the visual identity, I would say something like, when you get to the point in Canva where you're starting to try to do your own designs, you're not going to have any of the assets that make it very easy to drag and drop. And so then a lot of our clients will pump the brakes and they'll say, okay, can I engage you or someone else to go through that professional process to design your visual identity? The moment you're doing that, you're saying, well, what's guiding that? And then all of a sudden, a company becomes aware that it is really important to understand the strategic brand elements. So I guess what I'm really saying there is, we provide, I guess, a little bit the ability to sometimes do things, what feels like doing things out of order, because that's just the reality for a lot of small businesses. If you're seeing that chart and you're sort of getting some anxiety that, oh my goodness, I have so many missing parts, welcome to the club. So many startups and small businesses, sometimes by scarce resources or time, they don't have the ability to do everything perfectly right. So I'm
even
not
us,
saying
it took a while before we had a full brand kit built out for our own internal use.
It's one of those things. It's difficult to do all of that right out of the gate. But within the boot camp, what we're saying is a lot of this you can do on your own without having to hire the professional. It just takes a little bit of sort of navel gazing. You need to look inwards. And so the boot camp would facilitate a lot of these questions. At some point, when it comes to the technical design, you should probably hire a designer to do the design of your logo and your visual identity. In the same way, if we're switching gears to a website, you should probably hire a website professional, a vendor like 910 or otherwise, to do the design and the development. But all of the strategy and all of the content and all of the core focus and who your audience, all of the strategic side of building a website can and should be done by you, or at least in conjunction with you. So there is lots of things that businesses can do to take control of their brand and be a part of building it. And it's usually on the strategic side. And there's usually a hard line where, okay, it's time for a professional to do the technical design or the technical development, whether we're talking about brand or or website. And then once that's in place, jump into the boot camp and learn how to use all of that, which then typically is tied to what we call a content strategy, which is now go forth and do beautiful branded marketing in a consistent way in your platforms of choice, which will probably be your website. It'll probably be a social media channel or two, and it'll probably have some considerations for the major search engines like Google. So going off a bit of a tangent there, but
yeah, and I would just to add to that, specifically with websites, it's a good idea to, if you are looking for vendors, make sure that you are going to have the ability to edit and make changes to your own website. That's ideal. You want to have some sort of background situation, CMS, a content management system that allows you to easily edit and change things on your website, because it's good to continuously update a website. I also just noticed, Penny, there's a question here. Is Canva a good place to make an image you would like to use on your website? Perfectly okay to use Canva to make website banners. You're going to need the dimensions, and you can actually make a custom size for the website banner, and then you're going to want to save it as a JPEG. PNG is a bit higher resolution of a file, but when you're putting stuff on web, you actually want to make sure that the image quality is a little bit lower, or like smaller, as small as it can be without it being super blurry. And the reason for that is the more big photos you have on your website, the longer it's going to take your website to load. And that could have people sort of click on your website, doesn't load right away, so they bump and go somewhere else, right? So you want to make sure your website is loading as quick as possible. I would stick with JPEGs on websites. PNG for social media is totally
Sorry to cut you off there, Alex. We have about 5 minutes left, so Shay will jump back in from Business Link here in a moment. But just a few key questions. There's some questions about, how do you register for the boot camp? What does it cost? What's included in that? 910.ca/training. That's the link on the screen. That has information about our boot camp. It's a 12-week boot camp. It's rolling entry, so you can start at any point. Once you start, you go through 12 weeks of sequential course materials that cover 4 pillars: brand, web, social, and search. Again, there's some prerequisites to have an established brand, to have a website, and to be established on social media. We don't do any of the designing or the building in the boot camp. Rather, in the boot camp, we teach you how to use that. So if you don't have any of those foundational elements, then you would work with our other divisions to get your brand established first, or get your website established first. Or you could work with other vendors to do that as well. The boot camp, we've structured it in partnership with Alberta Chambers of Commerce. So there's a steep discount for any Alberta Chamber of Commerce member. And then our program also qualifies for the Alberta Job Grant, which is professional skills development for small companies to pay for professional skills development for the owners, managers, or for their staff. And it works out to, after the chamber discount and after the subsidies, $135 per week. Within Grand Prairie, there's even additional funding from the city. So it brings it down to, I believe, $11 a week, something like that. So it's very accessible from a cost perspective. And then we also have 910.ca/quick plays. This is where we just share quick tidbits of information about, tips and tricks for Canva or Facebook or Instagram. You can check that out. And then as well, we're doing more of these sessions. There's another one coming up on Instagram. Shay will speak to that in a minute, but you can reach out directly to me, Ryan, at 910. I am one of the owners. I'm in business development, and I also lead partnerships. So that's partnerships with Business Link and Alberta Chambers of Commerce. And one of the things that primarily I work with our clients on is how can you maximize the funding that's available in the system? This does qualify as professional skills development, and therefore the government has funding opportunities for that. And we're in partnership with enough organizations that really make this accessible from a price point perspective. Shay, why don't I hand it back over to you?
Oh, just to note, I did just post in the chat the link to that Quick Plays sign up. So if any of you wants to click on that and look through there, and then that'll take you to our website where you can find more info on the training as well. So.
Wonderful. So we're almost done here. Thank you so much, Ryan and Alex. I wrote down a few notes as well. So same as last time, learned a lot myself. So the next one is leveraging Instagram for your business. That's September 15th. We still have spots available for that one, 11 to 12. So most of our webinars are right before lunch. And the recording for this webinar will be on the website. So that same link that we shared earlier, or in the resources section on the Business Link website. So you can come back, catch anything you missed, and absorb all of this information again. Thank you again for joining us. If you would like to contact us at Business Link, if you have any questions, please email us at askus@businesslink.ca, or you can call us at 1-800-272-9675. If you're looking for any one-on-one advice, so we do have business strategists that can work with you on permits, hiring, all kinds of small business questions, one-on-one. Sign up for our newsletter for more information on other events and offerings, programs that we have. You can connect with us on social media, chat with us online, rewatch all of our recorded webinars. Everything from cash flow to HR to marketing is up on there. And we do have a lot of really exciting new workshops and events coming up. Following this webinar, you will receive an email with a link to an online survey. We so appreciate your feedback. Anything you liked, anything you would like to see, we want to know it all. Even if there's sort of some topics that you haven't seen us cover, please just let us know in that survey. It'll take less than 5 minutes and we would so greatly appreciate it. Thank you all. Thank you so much again, Ryan and Alex. I'm looking forward to the next one. And if you have any questions that weren't answered in this session, please feel free to reach out to Ryan and his team. That's a wrap.